Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Northwest Geology Guy. My name is Scott, and we're going to be looking tonight at a few particular earthquakes I want to talk about and their aftershocks. I'm showing you right now the Pleasant Hill area in California near Concord. And it seems like California tends to have a lot of microquakes, and about roughly every 20 years we'll have a large quake in the magnitude 6.5 to 6.8 magnitude area. And but they don't have a lot of mid-range quakes. I'm not sure. I guess either you're going to get a lot of little ones or you're going to get a big one. But tonight we're going to talk about this down here and the one further south. They popped off the other night with a magnitude 4.5 that was widely felt, and not on a particular known fault system. But I do have the U.S. faults turned on the map. But let's back out just a little bit here. You'll see some of the fault systems here in the little red streaks. Some are railroad tracks too. It won't show up. But it's over here near the, come on, light it up, the Concord Fault on the Concord section. And it kind of came out of nowhere. And it's had quite a few aftershocks. Let me see what we got here for aftershocks. We're looking at 41 total quakes. That's up from earlier today when I was looking at it. I've been closely monitoring it. I just had a feeling that maybe we had another large event coming, but so far we're still good, which, as exciting as it is and everything for a geology nut like me and a few of you other guys. But I'm glad it didn't happen. But it's kind of a larger area than what I would think. I thought they'd be more localized right around the main shock. But, and I can't remember, this carried a foreshock, but I can't remember which one it was. I don't want to bore you guys going through all of them. But I was listening to Ben Furley, oh God, his name always tongue-ties me, Ferriolo, and he was showing you guys some of the wavelengths to it. And he was seeing, a normal P wave, but when it came to the surface wave, it created like very strong low frequency signatures to it. I'm not sure why either. I'm not a seismologist, and as it does interest me, I'm not like Ben that's fixated on it and that's your gift. Mine is, basic geology is my gift and interest, but it had some weird signatures to it. Not sure why. It surely wasn't volcanic. It was all tectonic, even though they had a lot of volcanism in California over the millennia. But my wife's sister-in-law's family is down in the Sunnyvale area, and they said that they felt it because I was going to have her call them and tell them to be prepared that, there may be larger quakes coming, but, being in California, they are already prepared, and they felt the quake down here in Pleasant Hill, and so they're all nice and ready. And I advise everybody else in the Central California, actually all of California, or let's enlarge that to the entire West Coast. You should be prepared at all times. I know we all have a certain amount of food on hand, but it's hard to keep a lot of water on hand because they say that every person should have a gallon of water per day. Well, if you're going to, like Cascadia, if that goes off, we're going to have, months of hardship before real relief comes in. So that's an awful lot of water to store. And I know not everybody has the room to store. But it was nice to know that they were prepared. But it's just really weird that these quakes popped off in this area. And you can see this whole little cluster in here, maybe even down as far down here may be related, but you really don't see anything. Let's back out a little bit. All the way over here to the San Francisco Bay, and over here is nothing. There's a little one down here, but that's on the Hayward Fault, which they consider to be overdue on average, but Mother Nature doesn't follow a certain pattern, and I wouldn't really suggest any of you guys buying into a lot of the stuff you hear from the scientists in that aspect. I mean, the guys really know their geology and seismology, but, you know, everybody wants to know when, you know, how often do we get quakes like this? And, you know, so they have to come up with something. So they come up on average. Now, I know I've looked at the last 10,000 year timeline of Cascadia, and it's kind of all over the place. You know, you may go 1,100 years without a quake. So Mother Nature does not follow a timeline, but on average, they have large quakes about every 20 years or so. But, you know, it's been a long time since we've had the largest quake, I think, was in 94 down in Southern California. So, you know, we're overdue for that. For if they go by a 20-year average, you know, that would be 2014. So we're 5 years past that. But you should be ready at all times and knowing where to go. I mean, yeah, I'm probably a little more into it than most people, but it's not so much just trying to have food and water on hand, but like I work 32 miles away from home, and I go up and down I-5, I-405. I can go Highway 167 to get from our house here in Renton down to work in Tacoma. And, you know, if Mount Rainier goes off, there's going to be a massive lahar that wipes out, like just east of Tacoma is a little town called Fife, the city of Fife. And I mean, it's a hick town. There isn't much, but there's some homes down there, but a lot of business area and truck stops, and the Port of Tacoma is down there. But that whole area is going to be wiped out with a massive lahar if Rainier lets loose. And I'm not talking eruption. I'm just talking if there's the west side has a lot of altered rocks from hydrothermic steam that carries a lot of acids in it that have altered the rocks from nice hard rocks into crumbly clay. And it did that before on the east side. I believe that was like 7,300 years ago, and that caused the Osceola mud flow that reached into South Seattle. And that's, you know, 60, 70 miles away. And it came right down the valleys and covered, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the area around here in Western Washington, but the town of Puyallup was always famous for the farmlands down there. But that's why they're so famous, is because of the rich soil that was brought down in the mud flow that just buried everything down there and created the flat floor effect down there. And it happened before, it'll happen again. I was talking to, I believe his name is George, I can't remember his last name. We were chatting in my Facebook group that I'm in, and didn't know. I was trying to school him a little bit because he was saying things that I didn't think it was the case. But and one of the other moderators came in, John Vidali. He used to be the director of the Puget Sound Seismic Network, and I'm kind of good friends with him. He likes to chat a lot in there, and he popped in just to let me know that I'm talking to the University of Washington's expert in volcanism, especially Rainier. And he was telling me that Mount Rainier is a dying volcano. But I've learned a long time ago, and it's kind of common knowledge, that the average lifespan of a Cascade volcano is 2 million years. Well, Mount Rainier is only about 500,000 years old, so I thought the guy was a kook. But he turns out to be the expert. But he was saying that the mountain is rotting away, and that's what happens usually as the volcano is dying. That once the magma source is shut off, the magma chamber hardens underground, and the mountain withers away. And just like just north of Rainier is called an extinct volcano, Goat Rocks. And it's about, give or take a little bit, but about 50% eroded away. And that's what's going to happen eventually to all of our Cascade volcanoes. But and he thought too that since we don't have an awful lot of the Juan Fuca plate left to subduct, that it will shut off the magma supply before the 2 million year average. So that's why he thought that was closing. And I know I'm way off the subject, but I just thought I'd give you guys a little information. But that whole town of Fife will be buried in Lahar debris. And that's what happens when you have a natural disaster. It's going to wipe out our roads and freeways. And so that's why I've always tried to find maps. And I've lived here all my life, so I know the area extremely well. So I'm trying to calculate, okay, if this route's shut down, what's my next best option? If that's impassable, what's the next best way to get there? And there just isn't an awful lot of way, except if somehow I could take a ferry and connect from North Tacoma at one of our probably premier parks in Western Washington is Point Defiance Park. And they have a Washington State ferry that docks right down there in Commencement Bay and takes you over to Vashon Island. And then from Vashon Island, I could pop over into downtown Seattle and make it home that way. Well, that works great if there's a Lahar from Mount Rainier. But if there's a Cascadia event or a very large earthquake that damages the roads, then I'm kind of stuck. Either I'm stuck at home and I'm shut off from my kids down in Tacoma, or I'm down there and I'm stuck off or stuck from getting home to my wife and our little boys, our little dogs. But yeah, it's kind of hard. So always have a plan. If you're working in the same little community you live in and your family's close by, or you're kind of out there on your own, your families are a ways away, well, you're going to have to learn to get around in a disaster, especially if you live on the West Coast. And I know I'm doing a lot of rambling tonight. I think I'm on the verge of coming down with a cold because I felt really run down today and I just feel kind of cruddy. But let's go down here to look at the other quake. I just can't remember the name of the area, that's all. Okay, here we are. And what are they calling this down here? Oh, Pinnacles, that's right. And we've had a lot of a main shock down here of 4.7, larger than the one we just looked at, the 4.5. But it's had a lot of earthquakes as aftershocks here. And what's kind of funny is, they're not as small of aftershocks as we're seeing up north of it. But it kind of died off, but there's a lot of quakes in the upper or under 1 and mid 1s. But up here there's a lot of quakes up over 2. And I apologize for the noise. I've got the window open. It's warm in here. But this is what I was telling you about the other quake. It was kind of the quakes were scattered out a little bit more in a wider area. This is more condensed than what it is on the other one. And this is right on the San Andreas fault area. And what's strange about this not only does it have the same crazy surface wave signatures, showing a lot of strong low frequency signals in it. But it's known for an area of the creeping section of the San Andreas. They don't really have a lot of big earthquakes here at all. What happens here, and scientists have been working on this for a long time, trying to figure out why. And what they found out was they dug trenches down in here on the fault, trying to find out what type of rock is making up the fault. Because remember, over here is the North American plate, and over here is the Pacific plate. Two different tectonic plates. And what they found out is, in this creeping zone area here, there's a lot of talc rock down here. Now, I know you're thinking talc is like baby powder or, gold bond powder. Well, that's what it's made of, but talc is a very, very, very soft rock. And that's why they don't get a lot of stickage here on the San Andreas in this area, because it's lubricated with the talc rock. Because it's talc, if you ever see it in a chunk, it looks almost kind of greasy looking. And it's a real good lubricant. Not so much as an oil, but or a liquid. But that's why if any of you guys are into bowling, really into bowling, if your shoes are sticking to the runway on the lane, is you put just a little sprinkling of talcum powder, and you'll slide nicer on the wood. It's a lubricant, and that's what they believe is causing the creeping here, where it doesn't have a quake to move. It just continuously, slowly moves to the northwest, not leaving any quakes behind to show you that there's creeping going on. But what you do see is a lot of curbs, sidewalks, fence lines, and even, I believe it's a winery down there that is right in the middle of the San Andreas Fault. It runs right through the building, and the building is one end of the building is sliding to the northwest, while the northeast section of the building is staying stationary. And so, yeah, it's kind of crazy how things happen like that when you build things and find out you build it directly on top of a major fault. But that's what's kind of weird about this area here. Why are we having a quake in a creeping zone? I'm going to be looking to see if I can find any USGS reports on this and report back to you next week. I'm going to try to do this at least every once a week, unless something major pops off. But I know I took my little one of my past videos, and I asked you guys what you wanted to see and learn about. And one of the things is a lot of you guys like is the earthquake updates, and a few more wanted to learn more about rocks, and that's what I was kind of working on tonight. But I just wasn't happy with what I was finding. So, because I can show you a rock chart, but those are just the basic groups of rocks. But as I got into mining as a hobby, there is a ton of rocks I never heard of before that you don't find in the rock charts. And so that's why I'm still researching on that. And I may have to do like a series on it and put it in a playlist. To start out with the 3 basic rock groups and go on from there. But getting back to the report here, this is in kind of a mountainous region. It may be tectonic. I'm sure it is. It's not showing predominantly low frequency volcanic signatures with harmonic tremors in there, but it's still kind of a mystery. And I'm only an amateur geologist. I'm not a professional, so I can only give you what I might think it is. And right now, I don't know what to think, unless for some reason, that there's a something to do with slippage that doesn't create or isn't associated with the creeping. But we'll see how it turns out. We may not hear anything more about it. They may just die out and that's it. No more larger quake or anything else. So we'll see about that. And let's back out and go over to the Philippines. Over here into Mindanao. Okay, there we go. My wife is from the Philippines, but not from Mindanao. She's up from Luzon, the Big Island. But down here they had a big one pop off that was originally a little bit higher, 6.4, but I believe it was like a 6.7, I believe, originally when it first came out. But they're really prone to earthquakes here and large quakes. See, there's a 5.1 there, 5.3 here, and over here it shows the yellow, and it's a VI, so it's a 6, which is kind of a stronger quake than what its magnitude comes in at. So that was a pretty strong aftershock in pretty much the same area. But that happened this morning, and there's a few more aftershocks here, but let me back off and show this to you here. Over in this area here, they got 1, 2, two big ones that I know of, but this whole area in here in the Tropic of Cancer area is full of subduction zones. And when you got a plate subducting one way and then one coming another way, it tends to put pressure on the plate in between. And down here in Mindanao, they have an awful lot of quakes, and fairly good size quakes on top of it. But it's just kind of strange how they had that. And you can always tell too when there's been a significant quake, mid-range quake, because you always are followed up with a lot of aftershocks. Now, down in California, let's go back over to that. That's about all I have to say about the Philippines there. But you come back over here to, oh, that's a little too tight, over to California, and you go down to the Ridgecrest area, and let's get back over there. Come on. They're still having aftershocks. You can see here the cluster here. We're seeing still between 1 and 200 quakes, small quakes a day. We're really not seeing the large quakes anymore. They're down in the 1s and the 2s. We get occasional magnitude 3 in there somewhere. This is why I don't like keeping my U.S. faults on, because it covers up a lot of things and makes it hard. But they're still in the 2s. With occasional 3 in there. But we're kind of worried too about the Garlock fault coming down here. It intersects with San Andreas, and the pressure could be starting to transfer down the fault line and reach the San Andreas and cause a large quake down there. But so far we're doing good on that. It's still it's just staying up here in the Ridgecrest Oso area. So, or Coso, not Oso. We have an Oso up here in Washington. But we're still having a lot of quakes going on here. And as you can always tell, Southern California is just loaded with microquakes down here. But we still, sometimes we get 2s and 3s down here. Not so often as we get the 3s, but we do get 2s a lot. Yeah, come on, there we go. There's a 2.2. Those are kind of common down here, so nothing really to worry about too much there. But as you can see, as we go up more up into the areas we just talked about, the San Andreas has a lot of quakes up and down on it. So I will keep an eye on things. I'll report back to you if there's anything major to report on. I'm still going to be working on the rock video to ID the rocks, see what they look like. But I can tell you that should be a pretty good video. I'm kind of picky. I really hate doing putting out a video that I'm not really happy with, because I'd like to show you more than what I can find. So I'll get that put together, and hopefully we can do that next week. If not, it'll be in the very near future. So you guys take care. I hope to hear from you guys in the comments. Please remember, for you people that are new here, to subscribe and hit the like button. And remember to hit the bell icon so you can be notified when the next video is put up. All right, you guys take care and have a good evening. All right, bye-bye now. Oops.